the board by the executive. And I just want to say a few words about those particularly. There was actually one fairly erudite comment on one of the blogs, which I'll read to you specifically, because I don't want to miss any of the nuances of this, but this was a comment from somebody with the initials of a former Prime Minister, not long past. I still like the idea that under the current constitution, we still ultimately have the right to vote the bastards out. And I worry that this will be lost. Now, it's a bloody big coincidence if all 12 members of the General Committee have had doubtful parentage all at once. And the other definition in terms of actually an odious sort of group of people, I'm not quite sure what we've done in that person's mind to create that definition. But what I do want to say is under Rule 20.1, sorry, the members have the same rights going forward in relation to the committee in terms of giving direction what will become the board, and at the ultimate, if they want to sack the board, they have the same rights going forward as they do now and have had for the last decades. So it does require the members to act together and say, right, there are 5% of us, 250 in round numbers at the moment, who actually don't agree with what you're doing here, and we would require a special meeting, bring it to the AGM or a special general meeting, to actually debate with the rest of the membership whether we agree with this or not. And if we are given direction as a board by the membership, then we have to follow that through. Now there is a clause in there which actually says previous decisions are not null and void. That's just to give some protection in case the board does something which have to be changed to actually make it clear that that is not an illegal act. But the members retain the ultimate right through a special resolution to actually, if they so desire, to vote out the whole board. It'd be handy if they tried to do that, to have a few people lined up behind them to actually who's going to take the place, but that's another matter. But there is absolutely no change in relation to getting the bastards out, to use those comments, that there is at the moment. I just want to make that very clear. So we're actually not taking anything away, and at the same time, we're giving members the additional right of making sure they're ratifying all appointments to the board as the rotation goes round and people are reconfirmed or appointed. So we think we're adding to it. The whole point about good governance is actually weak governance gives this lot the opportunity to do what they wish. I'm not saying for one moment that's happened over the years at this club, but a weak non-executive body, weak governance board, gives the executive pretty well, they can manage what they want. A good, strong governance structure with the right people around the table not only cuts out that in terms of power terms, but what it does give is actually that confidence to the executive that they've got some people around the table who know what they're doing. And the days of sport being run by the enthusiastic amateur, I'm afraid, has gone, whether we like that or not. And, you know, when I was recruiting, the nominations committee were recruiting at the time Neil, I had to convince Neil, quite rightly, that has he got the support of a non-executive body to actually help him through this? Because I quite understand Neil or anybody else saying, well, if I haven't, why am I bothering? Because all I'm going to do is get hassled. So from that point of view, we actually do believe we're delivering you the same protections, and we're actually attempting to put in place a board and a governing structure which actually allows this club to go from strength to strength and deliver for you the security in a very demanding world that you as members should expect. Now, I don't think we've actually quite got there as we are at the moment, hence the changes as we move forward. But with that, I still believe we can keep our key stakeholders, ECB, Birmingham City Council, the media boys, our commercial partners, comfortable that they are dealing with a club that knows what they are doing. Now, you won't agree with everything we do, but the essence is we think we know what we're doing and we need that strength to actually demonstrate to our key partners. So I believe that is the key benefit to you as members. I do hope you feel you'll be able to support those changes and leave here tonight putting a cross on your paper. tonight or at the AGM. But in the meantime, I'm very happy to open it up to questions. I think we've got a roving mic somewhere or another, so I'm more than happy to field questions to the best of my ability.
What are the powers and duties of the Members' Committee?
What are the
Powers and duties of the Members' Committee?
I haven't got them all before me. One of the key things that the Members' Committee we want to do is to actually act there as a challenge to the board. We're also intending to give them specific responsibilities for the heritage and the premium sort of brands and development and preservation thereof of the club. When I talk about premium brands, I'm talking about Warwickshire County Cricket Club. And a number of you have voiced the opinion that we're not doing enough to preserve that Warwickshire County Cricket Club brand over and above the Edgeworth. Actually, I tend to agree with you a little bit over recent years, and that's something that we will be revisiting and are revisiting at the moment. So they will be charged, probably with a budget, to actually make sure that we do get back to actually looking a bit more like a cricket club on occasions. I can't go over the top of this because we've got other parts of the business to operate. But that would be one of their key responsibilities. Their other responsibility is obviously fulfilling their duties on the board with their 2 representatives, and fulfilling their duties on the board committees through the representative on each of those committees I had up earlier. I think that probably should be enough likely to keep them going for a while.
Apart from the potential of the carrot being dangled for future, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, for future finance coming from the ECB, how much of the blueprint that we have here is laid down by the ECB, and where are we in the vanguard of other counties adopting that same sort of structures?
Good point, Roger. ECB have not laid down a blueprint as yet, and I hope they wouldn't do, because we're all independent businesses. I'm not being disrespectful here to somebody like Derbyshire, Leicestershire, which is a different type of operation, to Warwickshire, Lancashire, Yorkshire, in terms of the scale and the nature of the operation. So I don't want any template, I'm afraid. In terms of actually the discussion so far, it has been around clarity of the decision making within the club. And the issue we've had has been between the management board and the general committee. Not major issue, not getting out of context, but it does give some confusion. It's about opening up the board to actually diversity, gender, ethnicity, age particularly, coming in there. So we need to be able to demonstrate we've got the processes in to achieve that. And as I say, I think that will be an ongoing process of county to ECB discussion as we get closer to negotiating the terms of the county partnership agreement, which is very critical to us going forward in terms of the distribution and the way they distribute from the ECB. Particularly at a time, of course, which is another issue in relation to risks here, at a time when there's considerably more money floating around in the game come 2020 than there has been heretofore. 1.1 billion between 2020 and 2024 in media rights is going to have to spend. We need to make sure we're in a damn good position to demonstrate that any investment in Warwickshire County Cricket Club is going to be well managed. So it's going to be more about individual negotiations than it is a discussion than it is about. However, do I think this is the right sort of model of discussion? Yes, I do. Where are we in terms of the vanguard? We're probably about halfway. Some counties went much earlier on this. Glamorgan went last year in terms of a similar structure to this. None have put in place a members' committee though, retaining that direct link with the members and having representation. I think that, for a lot of people, will become the vanguard of the model. To actually, quite rightly, retain the engagement of the members rather than say, sorry guys, we're going to run the club, we'll get ourselves elected, we've got control, off you go. There's only a look around a couple of counties and that might be sort of the scenario. There's a gentleman.
So can I, first of all, there are 2 issues really.
Yeah.
The first one is prior to the Financial Conduct Authority giving the go-ahead and post.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If we take post,
yeah.
Can you tell me how it is proposed to get the 3 appointed non-executive directors, i.e. what process will you go to aid recruitment, and what process will you go through then to make the appointment? Secondly, there's nowhere in this constitution that says there is a maximum term that anybody can serve on this board. So, for instance, if you have served 2 terms as a non-executive director and then get appointed to be chair, you could go to 12 years rather than 9. And shouldn't the board consider putting an absolute maximum on that? As far as the remuneration committee is concerned, in modern corporate governance, it's not the chair that chairs the remuneration committee, it is the senior independent director. And I think you ought to look at that. Secondly, and this is nothing personal to Mr. Snowball, the post of chief executive being on the board that reviews potential and existing non-executive directors for suitability. And they, of course, are then supposed to be looking to hold him and his executive colleagues to account. I think you ought to look to see whether the post of chief executive should be on the nominations committee. My own view is, in good governance, no, it should not. Then there is the question of, prior to the change, are all the committee members who are going to make up the new board, will they be subject to election at the first AGM after the Financial Conduct Authority have given the go-ahead? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm more than happy to give you a response to that. I'll try and reorder you to take it in a more logical procession than that. That's not the way it is. In terms of actually post the AGM and prior to the FCA opining that they're happy with the new structure, the existing arrangements will continue. So the management board will still be there, the general committee will still be there. Subject to the members agreeing at the AGM that we can make the changes, between then and the FCA opining, we need to decide a number of things. One is, as you quite rightly say, who are the 3 appointed directors going to be? Now, I have to bear in mind as chairman that actually we have not quite contractual arrangements, but actually written agreements with the present non-executive directors, the appointed directors, regarding their terms. So Michelle, if I've got my numbers right, is 4 years into what will be a potential 9. Naz is 3, I think just coming up to the end of his first term. Mark is in his 2nd year. The plan would be that those will continue. However, they will be subject by the chairman to an appraisal, and if they're not matching up to their duties and their responsibilities, and there needs to be probably a tap on the shoulder and words with them. But at the moment there's no change plan there. The other step will be actually for the present general committee to have to decide which of their 3 present members are going to be the designated directly elected members on the board. Now one's easy, because that's got to be me as chairman, because I cannot be chairman and be on the members committee. That is, I think, quite clear in all of that. We've then got to decide who the other 2 are likely to be. And I wouldn't wish to prejudge what the general committee may well decide in the discussion on that. So I think we've got some continuity there. As far as the residual, which will be 9, including Paul if he's confirmed at the AGM, it is not the plan, it was debated, but it is not the plan to sack the lot and start again. We actually preferred a process of evolution, so therefore we'll go through what is actually the process of retirement. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the process, over the next 2 or 3 years, there is a big chunk of the committee which will come up for retirement having served their maximum term. Because without going into too much detail, we actually drew a line in 2014 as to actually almost starting again to try and work it through. So there are a number of retirements, compulsory retirements at the end of term or under the age coming up. So that must give us opportunities to go through. One of the reasons where we... You got me? Sorry. One of the reasons why we upped what could have been from the status quo at the moment, the members' committee from 8 to 10, was to give us the opportunity to bring in some immediate new blood, i.e. 2 extra people. As I say, Paul will be one of those, and we need to, or the members' committee will need to look at filling that last spot to actually where would it fit in terms of diversity, age, etc., etc. So that's that. In terms of the maximum term, well, there is. Any director or members committee member can only serve 3 terms of 3 years, i.e. 9 years in total. All we're suggesting is that, for argument's sake, if somebody came forward and the board wanted to be the chair, having served 4 or 5 years, in effect, they could only do a couple of years or so, or even a bit longer than that, as chairman. We felt to cover that angle, we needed to give the ability of the board to allow the chairman to do 12 years in total, but no more. And there will be a maximum of 6 years, as per the Constitution, on the term that the chairman can serve. Now, at the moment, there's no maximum on how long the chairman can serve. If I say to you, what have we been in existence, 1882, 136 years? I am the 13th chairman.
Yeah, but we're moving on now.
Yeah, exactly. The point I'm making, sir, the point I'm making is, I actually think I'm leaving that out. So I agree with you, we're going to put a maximum on it. The maximum is, chairman is 6 years, but because you're chairman, you can serve 12 years. Everybody else is 9 years, and it'll have to come off at the end of the period. And there's no ability, as some clubs have, to go away for a year and then come back again. You know, that's just perpetuates the problem. In terms of the membership of the NOMCO and with another one you mentioned as well, Remuneration Committee. Well, Remuneration Committee, Neil is not actually on that in relation to the key decisions, in relation to certainly his own. But we do need his input there in terms of actually the other senior management and of the general staff body. The NOMCO, I think, is a fair point, and we might just want to look at that. Neil, obviously, is not going to be able to sit on that committee when we're talking about replacing him, but the NOMCO will deal with that as well. And I won't be on it when we're talking about replacing the chairman either. But I take your point. It's something we can look at. It's not actually embedded in the Constitution, that, in terms of the makeup of the of those committees, but I do take your point. It's not embedded. We can look at that.
Firstly, just in general terms, to say that I agree with the idea of moving to a much more modern corporate governance structure. It's not a silver bullet, but I think it's something that we need to do, as the previous questioner said, because of the pressures on us around the world. I would also echo the comments that the previous questioner made about the Nominations Committee and the Remuneration Committee. In my experience, you don't get CEOs sitting on those committees, but they do have the people who run the committee, the chairman of the committee, has the right to invite the CEO to attend those meetings where it is appropriate. Equally, in the case of the chairman can be invited by the chairman of those committees, and I would strongly support the comments of the previous questioner on that one.
Yeah, I would take those on board. That's
the point I really wanted to ask about was the actual members committee. We've got 10 good members and true, and they are there to represent the views of the membership. One of the things I was wondering was, are we going to get a sort of like a consensus of the views of those 10 members, or will the membership committee have access to the facilities of the club, particularly the IT facilities, in order to canvass opinion from members on particular issues? And if that is the case, could you also perhaps comment on the ability of the club to be able to do that, given that the data protection regulations are tightening up at the end of May this year?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to. I can afford getting into the GDPR regulations, but in terms of the members committee, one of their key responsibilities is to make sure they are garnering the views of members. Now, I don't want them, and I don't think they would want to be, going off and starting an industry on their own. We do have a members department with a membership manager in it in terms of Andy Nichol. If the membership committee wants some information and a message gone out, that's up for them to actually go and talk to Andy. And we've built into the side rules, in terms of reference for the membership committee, that they can ask for Andy to be at the meeting. In the same way they can demand, that's probably a bit strong, they can request that Neil and I are there to actually explain what the club is all about. So I agree with your end result, but not actually creating an industry of the membership committee going off on their own, but having enough power and shout to be able to get the membership department through Neil, and other to actually get out there if they think there's an issue that needs to be said. I mean, we do have, Neil, don't we? It's sort of an annual members survey.
We do, yeah, which I know many of you will have completed. I think we could do more with that. One of the things we've also done with Andy last year was spend a bit of time in here and over in David Heath from time to time. But I think this is, for me, is one of the main things of this new members committee, is to be far more plugged into and close to, you know, what are the important issues of the day for the members. So I think that you're right, there's a number of things we can do that. And as Norman said, I don't want to get into GDPR, but we are absolutely taking that very seriously. As you can imagine, it's so crucial to the whole of our business, not just the way we communicate with existing members, but obviously our whole CRM business. So we're very much on the case with that.
Okay, time. I don't want you to. Lady in front of Colin.
I wonder if you could just say a little bit more about how you intend to improve the representation, the gender and the ethnicity representation. You've expressed it as an outcome that you're looking for, but actually how are you going to achieve that?
Yeah, it's something I'm passionate about to actually do that. What both the board and the nominations committee and the membership committee are going to have to do is actually describe what they want in terms of skills, and I think going to have to specifically in those sort of communications to members say that these are our principles on diversity. I actually believe the way of the world as it is that we're going to have to go looking. I think actually my hope that actually members will come forward in more numbers than they've done to historically may be a bit misplaced. So I think whether it be the nominations committee or the members committee, they're going to have to go looking a little bit and actually find people within the club. And you know, there are a few names I could come up with, both from a gender point of view as well as ethnicity, who actually could add a lot of value. We've not had real scope to do that in the business. So I think very determined research of the membership and followers of the club to actually make sure that we do fulfil that. And that's one of the reasons why, in many respects, we have to have the nominations committee there and offering opinions. Because if we don't have that control, we'll just continue, best will in the world, men will put their names forward and they'll go forward to the AGM and the rest of the men will vote for them. And we've somehow got to be able to try and have a managed democracy in terms of actually trying to improve diversity within the board and institution.
Okay, I think we'll take one more question at the back, and then I think we'll probably need to move on to give time for Ashley and
I think they've lost the will to
live. But we're not shooting off. So if there's any other discussions or any other questions, we can certainly ask afterwards.
Jeremy Thomas. First of all, my apologies for being late this evening, and I also want to thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to hear firsthand from you how these changes are proposed, and giving us the chance to ask questions about it. I have been a member of Warwickshire County Cricket Club for long enough to remember it or see it change from being a members county cricket club to being the international cricket stadium and hospitality centre and business that it is today. And I think in that sort of situation, what we've heard this evening, most people seem to agree that it makes business sense to move down this particular process. My question may be out of date, and I may be wildly wrong on this, but you can correct me if I am. Going back to when the council made the loan to us, I seem to remember that as a members club, the members of the cricket club, of Warwickshire County Cricket Club, own the club and are liable financially. Does this actually continue, and if not, who is actually financially liable?
Good point. There is no proposal or any thoughts to change the constitution of the club from what actually is a members club. It used to be governed by the Industrial and Profit Society and is now a cooperative and community benefit society under the 2014 Act. all members at any one time are responsible and liable for the debts of the club to the extent of £1 each. End of story. So who is responsible for the liabilities of the club? At the end of the day, it's those who are taking the risk on in dealing with the club. So in the context of the City Council, they know our constitution and are happy with our constitution in terms of that structure. So we do not change anything at all in relation to the liability of the members. We're not proposing to move, as one county has done, to a company limited by guarantee, or as one other has done certainly, moved a few years ago to become a private limited company with private share ownership and different liabilities. So no change. So from that point of view, you're not out of date, nothing's changed.
Okay. Thanks very much, Norman, and thanks everybody for your questions. I suggest we have a bit of a shuffle now, if that's okay, and we'll invite Ashley and Bob to come up.